Our next speaker, we actually have a fancy little setup here. We're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have a fireside chat with someone that is putting Vancouver on the map as a hub for entrepreneurship. That's a big word. Entrepreneurship, ingenuity, and the millennial workforce. He's bringing the sexy back to bookkeeping and accounting with his design-focused tech company, which has raised over $33 million since 2013. They have over 225 employees and a few dogs, and I understand that they are hiring, so if you do have questions, feel free to tweet them afterwards. They're hiring, and they're headquartered in Vancouver. He was named one of BC Businesses and Forbes magazine's top 30 under 30. He's the CEO and co-founder of Bench. Welcome, Ian Crosby.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining today. So I understand a belated birthday wish is in order. So unfortunately, you are no longer eligible for 30 under 30 next year. I'm sure you wanted to...
I squeaked in right under the line.
Yeah, right under the line. So happy belated birthday. Does
Thank
that mean
you.
You're going to retire anytime soon?
I don't have any immediate plans. I know, I enjoy what I'm doing.
We want you around for a little bit longer, though.
Cool.
So glad to hear that we can keep you around.
I will do my best to oblige.
Okay, wonderful. So tell me a little bit about Bench and what you are doing to change the way people do business.
Sure. Well, every small business needs financial statements. It's just one of those things you need to run a business. I mean, I guess you could try to run your business without doing financial statements and doing your taxes. It's probably just not a very good long-term strategy.
Probably not.
But the way that it was done before Bench was, you had to hire someone, you had to learn all this software, and bookkeeping and accounting is kind of this very esoteric knowledge. Like if you are a photographer running your own photography business, or you're a Shopify store, you're selling things online, accounting tends to be something that's so far outside of sort of their previous knowledge that it's scary, it's confusing, and it's something that so many people need that I just didn't get why there wasn't just an easy place where you can go and just hit a button on a website and get your sort of standard issue accounting. Mm-hmm. It was always sort of a bigger ordeal. So what we did differently was create sort of something where you can just go sign up, and in 15 minutes, you have your full bookkeeping solution. You're going to get your financial statements every month. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to do anything, and that's what we built.
Well, it's that easy, hey?
Well, it's easy for the customer,
for the customers.
to actually do it. Yeah, it was like a multi-year journey. I think a lot harder than what we thought it was going to be when we started out.
Right, and so what are some of the lessons that you learned along the way in building Bench?
Oh man, some of the lessons along the way. I'd say the biggest thing was there's just no right way. It's like when you start, especially if you haven't run a business before, there's kind of this general feeling, I can't even put my finger on it, but that, there's some knowledge, there's some secret that everyone else knows that I don't know, right? Or that, there's some qualification that must be out there somewhere, or some experience, because, I look at other people running businesses and they're doing it with so much confidence. They must know something that I don't know. And really, everyone's just kind of making it up as they go along.
Okay, so you just got to take the leap sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no real secret. It's just about sort of doing your best and doing what makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you describe as some of your core values or guiding principles in building Bench, or perhaps for yourself in life?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say what really got it off the ground, and what sort of got us over the sort of take the leap hump was, I don't know. I don't know if this was a great attitude to have, but we sort of really didn't like a lot of businesses and how they were run. We thought they sort of were okay with mediocre service, or like I would call. I don't want to call out any particular companies because now that I run a business, I'm like, wow, that's hard. But you're on hold for 35 minutes. I'm like, why? That's not a good experience for me. Do you want my business? How are you making me sort of go through that? Mm-hmm. So we kind of started it as a rebellion against mediocrity. We wanted it to be something where people would go there and they would go, wow, that is amazing. We put a lot of thought into, from the first second that you land on the website to every day you're getting your financials, that everything's been thoughtful, and I couldn't think of sort of anything obvious that I don't know, is a detriment to the customer experience. So that's that's really just sort of been the guiding principle since day one. Now, obviously since then you learn sort of how hard it is to sort of like, okay, predict the exact number of callers you're going to get, at any given hour of the day. But we really, rather than saying, oh, well, everyone else has 30-minute wait time, so I guess that's okay. We just really push ourselves to try to figure out what we could do that's better, because we think that's kind of mediocre.
Exactly. So don't just stick with the status quo and don't stick with what's mediocre. Don't use that as an excuse to just do what everyone else is doing. Like, raise their expectations, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way we think about it is, the way anyone else is doing it, that's not the way it has to be done. It's an interesting hypothesis. Like sometimes it's sort of like, oh, there's an idea, they were doing it that way. Doesn't mean that it's right. Like we actually go out and we sort of, maybe even to our detriment sometimes, we sort of test everything. Like we take nothing for granted, and someone will say something that sounds obvious. We're like, yeah, but really, is that actually the way it is? Let's go test it.
Yeah.
And 80% of the time, oh yeah, okay, so we were being a little bit, ahead of ourselves. But 20% of the time, the time when you actually test something that no one else has thought of or figured out, and you've learned something different, it's like hugely, wildly valuable. And those are the things that really are what's going to make you successful. It's like discovering the things that went unexplored by others.
Absolutely. And you talk about success. How would you yourself define success?
It's really about choosing priorities. A long time ago, I had this formative experience when I was in martial arts. I was a competitive martial artist before I got old.
So he just turned 30. Come on.
I feel a lot older than 30. I'm definitely not doing competitive martial arts anymore. But actually, my teacher, he went on this big speech for the class with these big philosophical speeches. And there was one, we were sort of like, every achievement just passes. You think of it as like, oh, how amazing it would be to, accomplish this or achieve this. And then 2 weeks later, it's just on to the next thing. Like, it's not satisfying to just constantly be chasing this image of what your future life is going to be like. And that, it's really about, do I enjoy what I'm doing in the moment? Like, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? And focusing on that. And it's just a very different headspace. I think it almost goes back to like, oh, everyone else has figured out a thing that I haven't figured out yet, right? It's like, and then, someday I'm going to figure it out, or, someday I will get the master achievement, and then that will be gratifying, and then like my life is kind of done. And it just, the satisfaction doesn't really work that way. And I think I saw it in High Resolution too when I was building the company. It was sort of like, oh yeah, the first $1 million in revenue. It was like, oh, we'll be a real company, or we'll be successful when you get our first $1 million in revenue. And you get there and you're like, wow, there's more problems than there have ever been. There's more stress than it's ever been. And like, this doesn't feel gratifying. If anything, I'm like more worried about everything, right? And then the next $1 million, or getting this big investor, or it turns out that when you're actually doing it, it's not any of those things that matter. Like those kind of just fade into the background, and it's really about, do you believe in what you're doing every day?
Right. And I understand that people are a big part of, what you do, and, what you're focused on at work. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to be working at Bench? And my understanding also is that there's actually been a lot of news coverage as well around your corporate culture. I have a bit of a culture crush on you guys as well. Seriously, I've looked on their website. You've got a really cool wellness guide. You've got a new hire guide as well. Tell me a little bit about that and how that comes into play, and what it would be like if we were to work at Bench.
Yeah. Now, I'll give my answer with full knowledge that it might not be a representative answer, because obviously I sort of have a one directional view on, and maybe that's not what we really like. But I'll say what I observe it to be like and what I think it's like. Right. We are, again, going back to, we don't really take anything for granted. We're really just investigating, what is the best way that we would like to run our company. There's no sort of, right from the get-go, it was, okay, we're not going to take cookie cutter what other companies do, just because that's the way it should be done. Now, sometimes you learn, you test out and you're like, oh, there's a really good reason that, people do things that way. But for the most part, it's sort of like, yeah, why don't most companies have like mental health guides, or help, their people really deal with stress? I mean, if stress is going to be a thing that comes up in your job. I mean, even if you were like just sort of like the most like stereotypical evil Grinch-like organization, wouldn't they want their people to be the most effective? Like, why are they not helping people sort of be the best people they can be? So that's the thing we focus on a lot, and we're like, well, I don't know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. Let's just try it. Can we even come up with a mental, wellness guide? I don't know. We've never done it before, right? But no one else has done it either. So, I mean, why not?
Why not be the first ones to try? And hopefully others will follow suit.
So there's a lot of things like that, like things like so we have beer on tap, sort of unlimited beer on tap, and in a lot of companies it would be like, oh, are people just going to be drunk all the time? Well, no. I mean, turns out if you hire really good, committed people, that people aren't just going to they're not there for the beer. Just sort of a nice, okay, maybe I have half a beer with lunch or after work or something. And you can generally trust people to be responsible. You don't have to try to predict all the bad things that people are going to do. So there's just a lot of places where, again, dogs in the office, right? Where we're like, well, I mean, I can't really think of a good reason to not have one in the office. I mean, not in the sales area because they're going to be barking and there's customers on the phone. Okay, so there's a very good reason not to have dogs in the sales area. We learned that one, firsthand.
Firsthand. You tested that one.
But in general, it's sort of like, why can't you bring dogs to work? I mean, if they're well-behaved dogs, etc. And so, it's again another one of those things where we're like, well, we like it and we haven't figured out a good reason not to do it. I mean, everyone else is not doing it, but seems to work for us. Yeah. So, in general, I guess we do things that we like and make sense to us rather than sort of, I don't know, I think a lot of the time also companies feel like they have to play like grown-up business theater, like there's a way that sort of like business people are supposed to act and look, and that almost takes priority, and maybe it's that they're like, well, I don't know why we do it this way, but everyone else is doing it that way, so there must be something they figured out, so we have to do it that way. And, we gave that up, and I don't know, we've really, really enjoyed the results.
And my understanding also is that you vow to never have any offshore employees, and you're headquartered in Vancouver. Why Vancouver?
Yeah, and, again, it's nothing against offshore employees, but, when we were thinking about what is the best customer experience and what's going to be, the best, that was just one of the things sort of early up front that we decided that's just going to be a lot better for our customers. Why Vancouver? I love Vancouver. I'm from Vancouver originally. This is where I want to live. I lived in Toronto. I lived in New York. I spent a lot of time in San Francisco area, but Vancouver's home. And actually, it's funny. Sort of a lot of people in Vancouver. I'm not sure where it is, but there's people who like sort of complain about Vancouver, and I'm kind of like, I want to respect your opinion, but I totally don't agree. I love Vancouver. Maybe it's just a social thing that we're supposed to like complain about things, so we can sort of like, oh yeah, you too? Oh yeah, I don't like that either.
That's how people rally, though. They rally around things that they don't enjoy or they hate,
well,
right?
Yeah, well, they could rally against things they do enjoy too.
They should, yeah.
But, I love Vancouver, and I actually put a lot of effort into getting the business back here. We actually started it in New York.
Yes, that deserves a round of applause.
It was, I was not very popular with my investors for about 3 weeks there when I was like, we're going back to Vancouver on the other side of the continent from you, but it all worked out for the best, so they're happy.
Absolutely. So you took a big leap by focusing on an industry that isn't traditionally something that, an industry that, people would think about, building a new technology in. It's not particularly like sexy. We talked about bringing the sexy back to bookkeeping and accounting. How did you decide to take the leap in that industry?
I don't really think there are any boring industries, just boring companies. Like if you...
Ooh, yes. Think about that one.
It's not supposed to be a dig on any particular company. It's just, if you see an industry where, things aren't working for the customer or it's boring or not done well, that just shows you there's an opportunity. I mean, that's really where there's an opportunity. I mean, do you think that people would buy the better thing? Yes. Well, then, that should be a huge opportunity, right? So we actually saw that as a massive opportunity to actually envision and build something a lot better than existed before.
Absolutely. And so I have to ask also, we have a crowd here filled of mostly millennials, and you're also millennial. I know there's a lot of talk around millennials this, millennials that.
I love millennials and I love Vancouver.
There you go. Yes, so have it on record here, right here at TEDxSFU 2016. So what do you see the future looking like for millennials in the workplace?
Millennials in the workplace. It's interesting because I have such a narrow view. I only see sort of what's in front of my face on my day-to-day basis, right? But I think there's really an opportunity to chart our own course in what work is going to be like. That there's sort of these default ways of operating that, they might have worked or had a really good reason for being that way 30 or 50 years ago, that now, we're going to question. So one principle, for example, that we have a bench is minimum viable hierarchy. Not no hierarchy. We've tried that, and that was chaos. So that's, okay. It turns out that hierarchy is a very important tool for making sure that a team is operating effectively together. But beyond a certain point, it really becomes an impediment to people's creativity, to actually, accomplishing what we really want to accomplish together. We've kind of just figured that out and charted our own course as well. And I think, for a lot of millennials, we're going to be figuring out, how we want to work together, and that, that isn't written. We can choose what we want that to look like, what we want working together to look like.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ian. We wish you all the best, and happy belated birthday. Let's give Ian Crosby a round of applause.